Hello, hello, yes it is I, the conspicuous Moo. And you know, if you're like me and you didn't really enjoy waiting for World of Warcraft to come up with some fresh content and decided to go and look for something else, then Elder Scrolls Online might be one of the MMOs that you're looking at. Now, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly is one of mine, and I thought I'd just do a quick video to give you a few ideas of how different ESO is. So, for me personally, at the moment, I bought the base game, which comes with Morrowind, which is the first expansion, and that's hundreds of hours of worth of content right there. I'm not paying a subscription, but if I do choose to pay the subscription, then I will get access to all of the expansions and all of the DLCs attached to them as well as part of that subscription, plus the most useful thing ever, which is a bottomless bag essentially, so you can just pick up everything you ever wanted, and you don't need to worry about bag space pretty much ever again. Anyway, let's get into what I consider to be the 5 main differences. I mean, there are a lot of differences, you know, they're both MMOs, they both have very, very similar themes attached to them, but there are definitely some different styles of things going on in Elder Scrolls, so let's get cracking. So, ESO combat. Okay, so not everyone's entirely comfortable with ESO combat, and I don't really know why, because I think it's kind of fun. It's a lot faster than WoW's, and there's a lot more, I think, a lot more interaction and tactics and an actual decision making involved. It's not just, you know, hit these particular things on cooldown, it's make that crucial decision to maximize your damage at the correct time. So it is faster. Now you have light attacks just by hitting your left mouse button. You have heavy attacks by holding it down, which gives you resources back. Your right mouse button is your block, which will definitely come in handy. All of the moves that, you know, bosses and enemies make are usually telegraphed anyway, so you'll get an idea of what they're planning to do and whether you need to roll dodge or block or interrupt or exploit a weakness of theirs, so that's all fine. And basically the majority of your abilities are going to be, yes, they'll be causing damage, but they'll also be bringing up buffs on yourself and your group, putting debuffs on your target. It's pretty active, it's pretty move around, and it's kind of fun. I like it anyway. In terms of skilling up, each of the different classes in ESO have 3 specific skill trees attached to them, so you will be earning skill points through the course of your adventures, through quests, through collecting 3 sky shards, which will give you 1 skill point, through completing dungeons, and through going your main story. I mean, that's some of the ways you can get skill points. There are others available as well. So they have their 3 specific trees, which are kind of damagey, kind of healy, kind of tanky. Warden is a great example of this. And then you'll have more general trees, and the more general trees are like the PvP skill trees for the different abilities you can use. You don't actually have to use all of these abilities in PvP, but some of them are tied to those events. You have the Undaunted, which is the dungeon running and the raids. Then you have, you know, the in-game factions like the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild. There are a number of other guilds as well, depending on the expansions that you own. Then you've got your heavy, light, and medium armor, so they have certain bonuses that they can be applied to them as well, depending on how many of them you wear, and also some of the passives as well, which can be very useful. And then you've got your professions. Now, all of the professions are available to everyone except for jewel crafting. You'll need the Somerset expansion for that, but if you have ESO Plus subscription, then you'll have access to it anyway. So once you get all your skill points and put all your skill points in, you will start to build up your character. It gets kind of fun. At level 15 you get a second weapon, so you have a slot of 5 to start with, and an ultimate, which is like a minor cooldown. Once you get to level 15 you'll be able to flick over the bar and actually have a second set of 5 and another cooldown. So, you know, a typical tank build at the moment, I mean, Danger Moo is a tank. She's just running around having fun at the moment, but she will be a tank. So she's sword and board, one hand, and shield on the first bar, and you've got them all filled up. And on the flip side is a destruction staff, a frost one to be precise. You can have frost, lightning, and fire in destruction, or you can have a restoration staff, which is obviously for healers, or a bow, which is pretty good for stamina DPS. You can try it as a tank. Not exactly recommended, but you know, it's your character. Do what you want. Next we come to tanking. Now there are some significant differences here, because, you know, I usually tank things. This is something I found out rather quickly. You have a lot of ways to taunt. Almost all of them are single target. I think there is one gear set in the game which allows you to taunt AoE, and possibly being a werewolf as well. And I think those are the only exceptions Other than that, they've clearly stated that they're not really interested in AoE tanking in the traditional WoW sense. You're not going to be able to hit Rushing Jadewind and lol your way to threat levels. You have to make that threat, and that means that if you've got multiple enemies coming at you at once, you're going to have to pick the ones which are the most valuable, the most dangerous, bring them in, and then just hope that everything else dies before they get to everybody else. So yes, taunting is extremely important. It usually lasts for about 15 seconds, and then you have to re-taunt them again. Block is very important. It's basically your right mouse button. Blocking anything will cost you stamina, which is one of your main resources. But if you just taunt and block, you're still not really doing your job as a tank. As usual, you're supposed to know the mechanics, you're supposed to know how everything works, you're supposed to know what the dangerous moves are. And most importantly for a tanker, I think is a slightly different emphasis from World of Warcraft, is that you're going to be buffing and debuffing an awful lot. You are basically in a support role for the DPS to do as much damage as possible. So that means that you will be acquiring gear sets which are not really tailored for your survival, but more for increasing the output of the damage dealers. So that's a slightly different perspective in how a tank works. Healer will be doing something very similar as well. They'll have slightly different sets that'll give better returns. But yeah, the tank is much more of a support role here, and it's the DPS who get the most benefit, so that's a little different. Having talked about gear sets, let's get into that then. So once you reach level 50, you will start to earn champion points, and the champion points actually go up to about 3,600 now, which will take an extraordinary amount of time. The old cap was 810, they've just changed it, so there's an awful lot more scope for spending champion points as well, of course, but the actual cap for gear is CP 160, so once you get to CP 160, all of your gear is going to drop at that level. There's no eye level where you can sort of like your 20 or 30 or 50 eye levels above. It's more, you've got more champion points than the person you're fighting, you'll probably have a better time of it. So it keeps it at that cap. The most important thing about the gear in ESO is that if you're a fan of tier sets and you kind of miss their work, almost every set in this game is a tier set of some kind. It will provide some sort of a buff if you get the 5. Now, they'll have like 2 bonuses, like additional health or health taken or additional resistances, but usually there's a special trick at the end, whether or not it's drag all the people from around you inside, or increased ability to leech health off of your enemies. Some of the classic ones are, as usual, if you're a particular tank, I mean, I'm only really speaking from a tanking perspective here, but some of the tank ones, for example, increase the weapon damage and the spell damage of everyone around you by a certain amount, and others will reduce the cost of abilities by a certain amount. So you, especially as a tank, you will have more than several gear sets completed with the right traits and everything else on them, and that's your kind of thing. If you're kind of going back to classic, where you had your fire resist set and all of that nonsense, this is kind of similar, but it's more geared to who you're fighting with as opposed to what you're fighting against. Guilds and guild traders. This could be a bit of a deal breaker because it's not an entirely easy concept to get hold of at the start, but instead of just belonging to one guild, you can belong to 5 guilds, and it's kind of account based, so all of your alts will also belong to that guild if you join it. You have 500 max active players in each possible guild, so there's an awful lot of scope there. Now, there are different kinds of guilds. There's social guilds, there's PvP guilds, there's role-playing guilds, there's a lot of assassin guilds out there as well, because that's quite popular. And there are trading guilds. Now, the trading guilds are the ones I really want to go into here, because there isn't an auction house per se in Elder Scrolls Online. What happens is you have a whole bunch of guild traders who are basically fixed in major settlements, and there might be a couple in smaller settlements, and some just even out just on the road. Now, what happens is that once a week, I think it's a Sunday in Australia, there's a whole blind bidding process for these guild traders, and whoever bids the most money wins that guild trader for the week. So you'll see some of the larger trading guilds will spend absolute millions upon millions of gold a week trying to get the best possible positioning for all the wares that you can sell. And then yes, if you want something from that guild trader, you're going to have to physically go to them and find it and buy it. For that reason, it is recommended to use the Tamriel Trade Center add-on at the very, very least, because it enables you to search in a browser window for, you know, where the thing you want is, and then you will have to actually travel to it. The travelling part isn't really all that difficult. I mean, after all, you can take portals. You can even automatically portal to a player who's in that zone. So, you know, the actual travel time isn't the issue. It's just finding the bits that you want. And you have 30 slots. So you basically, if you're in a trading guild and they've got a trade, you can go up to your bank, go to guild store, start selling your stuff, and watch the money all start rolling in. So those are 5 of the major differences. The auction house one is probably the most jarring, and then probably the combat after that. But, you know, there are different ways of doing things. It doesn't all have to be Warcraft way, and the ESO way is pretty good too. I certainly enjoy it. I mean, I haven't even begun to go into all the different housing you can get here. Any of the dungeons, the trials, which are the 12-man raids. They have 12-man raids in ESO. The whole player storyline, which is a fairly epic journey from beginning to end. All of the PvP, which is in set areas. You can't just flag and go around chopping people up. You actually have to go to instance areas for that. Awesome instance areas, if a little laggy. You've got the whole gamut of professions as well, plus all the crafting gear that you can do. You can become a vampire or a werewolf, or you know, you can just be an absolute rotter. You can go around stealing things, you can assassinate people, you can become just your everyday garden variety murderer. It's really up to you, or you can just be all 3. So there are plenty of other things going on in ESO, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on some of the things that you might take you a little time to get used to. Anyway, if you do feel like joining me in ESO, I am on the NAPC server, the mega server. I only play Danger Moo, so if I'm on as Danger Moo, come and say hello. We'll go and have an adventure together. As for the World of Warcraft Shadowlands stuff, I'm keeping on top of it. There haven't been that many developments. I'm really at the moment waiting for the 9.1 patch to arrive, so we can start looking at what these positive changes are and just how badly they're going to treat Sylvanas in the end. So by all means, keep in contact for that. I've also, of course, got Heidi Megamoo coming up as well. That should be in the next couple of days or so. So if you are a Valheimer, yeah, I should have a few things for you there too. Anyway, stay tuned, stay fruity, and I will see you soon. But until the next video, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and the Elder Scrolls with you.